Hey, I'm Michael Gary, this is my channel, and in this video I'm going to show you how I made a storage slash bed frame kind of box to replace the back seats in my 2009 Generation 2 Toyota Prius so that I could convert it from being a car to like a mobile home stealth camper vehicle. All right, Ethan. Okay, that was a good start. All right, today I'm going to show you real quick. I'm Michael, this is Ethan, and we're going to show you how I set up a storage container in my Prius. Well, I lived in it. I took the seats out. If you want to see a video about how to take the seats out of a Generation 2 Toyota Prius, I have a video right here that I made specifically on that topic, but we won't talk about that in this video. I saw one of these on someone's video and it looked kind of like this, and I was like, that's so cool. I want to make that, but I couldn't find any instructions, so I just kind of figured it out. So let's talk about it.
So the first thing you did is you took your seats out and you took all the brackets out of the bottom, right?
Yeah, I just took all the metal and stuff that kept the seats in, and I put them in a bag, and so it was just kind of like metal. You'll see that later, but...
And so then how did you figure out what the frame of this should be? You measured the difference?
Yeah, so I did a lot of measuring, and then I did a lot of cutting, and I would put the things in there like pieces of wood. You can see there's still a little bit of gap here because I didn't do a perfect job, but I would put it in, and then I would be like, okay, this needs to be longer or shorter, and I would make adjustments. And eventually I kind of got some measurements that worked. Okay, so this is really the important part of the video. The measuring process, figuring out the dimensions for this bizarre storage device to fit into an empty space that was a back seat and that's like metal and there's tilt. That's the hard part. That's the hard part of making this device. And so I figured that out for you. And so I'm going to share those measurements with you here and talk you through them. And that should help you immensely in your building process. All right, so we're gonna start with the back piece of the box, the rectangular prism. So it's gonna be this piece here. And I have BFF written here. This is the back facing front, or back facing forward. So this is gonna be the pane that's the furthest back against towards the back of the car. And what you're looking at right now is that piece of wood facing forward towards the front. And so these are the measurements in inches. The only measurement that is not on here is the height of this piece. The reason I didn't put the height in when I was drawing this in is because the piece I used for this was just a 1x6 plank, and I didn't change anything with the height, so it was just the standard 1x6, which is about 5.5 inches if you actually measure it. When it says 1x6, it's like that's before it's milled or whatever, and so it loses some of that dimension. But one thing I would say about this piece is, if there's one measurement that I would change, I would probably add a 1/2 inch on. So if you could get like a larger piece, like a 1x8 or something, or something like that, and then do 6 inches instead of 5.5, I would recommend that, because I did have a little bit of a gap in between my storage box and the back of the car. The rest of it's gonna be way more easy, and I've got all the measurements, so stick with me here. It's gonna be helpful, I promise. All right, now this is the right side of the rectangular prism, and right facing in. So you have the back piece, and then the right piece is here. And so the surface on which this piece of wood lays is not exactly even, and so that's why there's this kind of diagonal cut in this space. So you'll see that in your car if you take the seats out, and those measurements will make sense. But yeah, that is the right piece there. All right, so now we move around to the left facing in. This is the left piece, so it's gonna look like that. And one thing to think about, and you don't actually have to think about this if you just follow the measurements, but there is a bit of a slant from the back, like the way that the trunk is, it's a little bit slanted up. And so I followed that slant a little bit rather than like leveling it off, because then you'd be sleeping like kind of you know what I'm saying? I took away the angle and I made it so that it was all flat with just the same slight incline. And so that's why this is at the back, it's 6, and then at the front it's 7. It just follows the incline a little bit. And with that last piece, you didn't have to do that. With the last piece, there's like an indent where it's not important. You're gonna understand when you make the piece, but that's essentially what's going on. All right, now this is the last piece. This is the front piece, and this is front facing back is how it appears here. And so this is where it appears on the rectangular prism. And that rectangular prism again represents the storage box. So that's just a reference to show you where these pieces go. This one looks the most complicated. You're gonna see some, look at all those numbers and cuts and stuff, but it's really not that big of a deal. this 16 to 19 zone, what that means is that at the 16 in, you cut up 3/4 of an inch, and then that goes for 3 inches. So that's a 3-inch wide cut. That's 3/4 inches up height wise. And so then that cut ends at 19 inches in from the left side there. And then, yeah, the only other thing that might be confusing on this one is there's a 9 on one side, and then on the other side, it looks like it could be either a 9 or a 7. That's a 7 down there. I circled it right there. But yeah, that's it. That's the front piece. And then you just assemble all 4 of those pieces, and you've got the frame for a box.
So once you put wood on the back,
Yep.
and it was the right height and the right length, and then you put wood here and wood here, you had assembled like the frame of the box.
Exactly.
So then how did you build this top part?
All right, so then obviously just a frame, you want to have some way of getting in, so I decided to go with this mechanism here, just kind of a flap. And what I decided to do was I just took one big piece of like whatever this is, plywood, and I think this is like a 1/4 inch maybe, and I just cut it to the exact size here, and then I cut one flap that opens this way, so if you come out the driver's side and you want to access here, you get it like this, and then this flap that opens, that one, this way, in case you want to reach back from the driver's side and grab something from in here.
If you just want to say the hinges that you grabbed.
Oh yeah, I just grabbed some like pretty basic hinges, nothing special. I just tried to get ones that looked sturdy enough that they would be able to hold up, like, you know, the weight of, I don't know, some torque of some kind, so I didn't have to worry about it. So I did one, I think I did 2 kind of like sturdy hinges on each flap. And then the important thing I did is I added in this extra board here, which is like, it makes it so that all the weight of the pressure, if you're like kneeling on that, like go ahead and sit on that, Ethan. If you're like sitting on there or something, then all the weight is not on the hinges, which would probably rip the hinges out. It's on that board, which is screwed into the frame of this thing. So I thought that was kind of a smart workaround. And then the plywood itself, being a 1/4 inch thick, it's fine supporting here, and it bows a little bit when you sit on it. Can you feel it a little bit?
Yeah, I can.
But it's not terrible. It doesn't break. That's the important thing. And I've kneeled on it and moved around quite a bit. So I guess that's the main part of it. Then I just covered the whole thing with boat carpet, or like cheap carpet, which I kind of did a nice little present style fold here. And I used staples and glue, like kind of carpet glue, to glue it all down. And then on the inside, I did the same thing. All right, so the way I secured this container in here is I used an L bracket right here, and then I used metal screws and I drilled them into the metal of the chassis. And then I did the same thing on this side, just one L bracket a piece. Not the most stable, but it kept it in place, right, Ethan?
Well, I would have done it.
Okay, that's enough out of you. And then I used the carpet, and I just stapled this carpet all around so that acted as like nothing would fall into the cracks where the wood was, and so that goes all the way under.
Somebody really smart came up with that idea.
Was that your idea?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
You were gonna originally you were thinking about putting boards across this bottom.
Oh yeah.
And like building a whole box in, and I said you should just put something like in this and use the form of this bottom. I didn't say carpet, but.
Cool. So real quick, now you can see the piece itself outside the car. Really simple construction. Just what we said, and then you can see inside. This is what the Prius is 2009 looks like without the seats in the back.
Another question I would have is these L brackets.
Yeah.
Did you just screw them into the metal, or did you screw them into like bolt spots or whatever, the holes that were already there? What'd you do for that?
Yeah, so I screwed them into the piece of wood, and then I just used metal screws which tap into the metal of the vehicle. So they cut a hole. They look like this, And so they cut a hole themselves. They drill a hole and then they tap into that hole. So those holes I made myself right there. That's really it for this video. I am sorry if this was complicated and if it was hard to follow. I did my best in this. I've never made an instructional video on something that actually relates to building or construction. I found this to be very complicated to explain. I probably lacked the right graphics, and I definitely wish I had access to that storage box because I could do some of this explanation easier, but I don't anymore. I've converted my car back into a car, and I had to get rid of the storage box. Just I didn't have space for it anymore. But yeah, I mean, overall, if you're living out of your Prius, this is a totally awesome addition. I would more than recommend it if you're going to be in there for anything more than just trips once in a while. I've seen other solutions to this besides building a box with flaps. Some people just do like a platform and they just stick stuff under. And I'm sure those are all fine options as well. But I just personally thought that this would be the way that would keep things most organized and just look the neatest and be the best, most reliable bed frame. And I think that it worked out great. You're not going to be able to have passengers in the back, obviously, because you don't have seatbelts and stuff. But your space is increased a lot, and the comfortability of sleeping back there definitely goes up. And finally, this isn't really related to the storage box, but the way that I had the bed frame continue all the way to the back of the seat, so that was long enough for me, I'm 6 foot, to sleep in there, is I just got a bin that fit pretty well into the space between the seat and that storage box, and then I just added some wood on top and some carpet on top of the wood so that it was the perfect height. And then on the other side, I used a milk crate and a suitcase to achieve the same effect. So it was just pretty much level the whole way. And it worked great. I slept in it for a couple months and it was awesome. I'm really just making this video because way long ago when I first started building this thing, I made a promise in our Prius dwelling that I would post a video about the setup I made, showing how I made it. And I just didn't want to leave that group hanging forever. So that's the reason I made this video mostly. I hope that you glean some kind of value from it. And if you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, comment, tell me what you think. Tell me if you are going to make something similar or changes that you might make to yours. And I hope that this aids you in your Prius adventure. Thanks for watching.